Hi folks, this is Tino with the Celtic Exchange Weekly, and I'm joined here by James and Paddy as we cover all things Celtic. Paddy, you were messaging in the group chat at the weekend. Seems you've got a lot to get off your chest. I'll let you get started.
Well, what was meant to be an absolute belter of a day with our Christmas night out on the Saturday after the game just turned a wee bit negative after that performance. We still had a good one. The pints finally took over for that result, and we had a great night out with the boys. But I've just said before we came on air, I don't think I've seen a performance like that at Celtic Park. And in a long time, I'm going back. I'm even thinking about the Mowbray era. I think that was shocking on Saturday, and I include it being worse than the COVID performances as well. There was just no direction, there was no organisation, no one wanted to take the game in the scruff of the neck. Man of the match for me was Anthony Ralston coming on. I think he was the one that tried to do at least something. No one got pass marks for me at all.
James, Paddy's mentioned a night out that I don't know if you got an invite, but I certainly didn't get
that one.
I'll need to dig into my WhatsApp.
I'm a man of many friends, remember that.
You're a popular guy. James, nights out aside, what do you make of what Paddy's saying there?
I don't know if there is a night out that could have made me feel happier after Saturday. It was so bad, and it almost encapsulates everything we've been feeling throughout this season. Everything we've been feeling since Ange said he was way down to Spurs. It showed you how much work Ange was doing to paper over the cracks, because the dysfunction at the company that is Celtic is there for all to see, and then that leads to whatever they did in the transfer business in the summer, which was just appalling, and then that leads to Rodgers coming out and kind of throwing his players under the bus, which I don't really see as something he would do, but he's kind of calling them out in terms of saying, I need better players. So the players are going, well, am I the player that's getting replaced? And he's doing that because he thinks he can't find the channel with the board, because there's a blockage somewhere that wasn't there when Ange was there between manager and the board that is there now. And then that leads to players turning in performances like they did on Saturday, and Rodgers turning in a performance like he did on Saturday. It's top to bottom appalling.
Yeah, it really is. And Paddy, it's looking more and more like Ange was just doing so much heavy lifting. He was, as James says, papering over the clacks. But as James doesn't say,
I'm glad we got away with that.
Aye. But there's a lot that Ange was clearly covering. He was all things to all men, wasn't he? And he wasn't just the head coach. He was director of football. He was chief scout. He was man manager. He was all these things. And as James says there, from top to bottom, listen, it's not just one thing. It's not just like your goalie's out of form at the moment, or our shape's a bit off, or the scouting and recruitment's a bit off. It seems very, very quickly, from a real position of strength, from a treble winning side, everything just seems to have hit the fan.
We seem to have shot ourselves in the foot again, and it's all right saying that Ange's done all those positions. We've also got to remember the three main players that really helped him last season. For me, and Jota, Starfelt and Aaron Moy, I think they were massive for us, and it takes us in hindsight to realise that. I think we obviously knew that we would feel the loss of Jota, but I think now you're looking at, you would be crying out for someone like Aaron Moy and Carl Starfelt to shore up what could be a settled side. I've seen a lot of people kind of still come away with a sentence that this is a treble winning team last season. A big chunk of it is gone. We've had injuries. We've not really had that run that the team have needed in terms of that consistency within the starting 11. And basically what we're seeing now is the confidence is extremely low. Now that comes down to a number of things. We know that the board are not getting away with this. This was the first game I would say that Brendan Rodgers needs to hold his hands up. And I think he will. I do think he will. People calling him for it to be sacked, that's crazy. We're still in this run. We need to get it right. We need to get it right quickly. I still think he's a good enough manager to go and do that for us. But this board need to wake up.
1,000,000% sleeping at the wheel is the chat, and that was a banner not all that long ago. And we're hearing obviously or feeling the parallels between this season and the COVID season, and there is no doubt the warning signs are there. James, you made the point before coming on air, I think, are we just 1 point, is it better off or worse off? 1 point better off
Doesn't matter.
Than
Either way.
Horrendous season. We've also been speaking about the fact that different fans absolutely have got different opinions on what the big issue is. Is it the injuries to guys like Rio Hatate? Is it the Green Brigade missing from the stadium? Is it the poor recruitment, the scouting? Is it Rodgers coming back second time around, without fire in his belly. All these things, and I think we're all crying out just for a magic bullet that will solve everything, but there's no one thing I think will fix what's going on here. It's more than just one singular issue.
Yeah. I suppose if you want to make it as simple as possible, put better players in the park, you win games. Simple as that. So if you sign the guys you should have signed this summer, we're in a different position here. So I know there's other problems to be fixed out with that, but if you have the players on the pitch to win the games, and I suppose the kind of contrast is we absolutely do have the players on the pitch to win Saturday, and Calmac and St Johnstone and Motherwell and Hibs, but they're not doing it. But that's a dysfunction between the manager and the players. I think just now there's something really not connecting there, and we've seen it, since the season started, that one week they'll turn up and hammer Aberdeen and everything just clicks and flows, and then the exact next week it's all over the place stuff. So all of it needs to be fixed. But if you want to just to go for the easy stuff first, get money spent in January and get players signed. The guys are talking about signing, the guy that they've kind of made a mess with, Brøndby player, I think it is. His goal scoring record's abysmal.
5 and 21 or something.
Aye, and it's like I hate it, but I'd much rather go for a lone player with an established record who maybe hasn't getting his game due to age or whatever it would be. Someone that can come in and just bang you in goals, because Kyogo's not firing. Even when he's getting service now, he's not firing. So as much as he's not getting as much service as he should be. But we can't. All the rumours I've heard for players is they look exactly like the 9 that we signed in the summer. And how players that got us.
Yeah, the rumours are very uninspiring, and I'm hoping none of them come to fruition. Yeah. I really am. Paddy, I've been using the tagline as such in recent weeks. Inconsistent lineups leading to inconsistent results, and that is exactly what we're seeing.
It is, and you take a look at our summer there, 26 players as a base squad is really, really big. To then go and add 9 players onto that, 9 players that are not exactly going to be starters for the team. And we've already been told about project players already coming in, one for the future from a manager. It is baffling that our squad is so bloated. And I think one thing for me that, again, just shows the mismanagement at the club is when you're looking at someone like Lagerbielke, who goes and scores the winner last week, and then they release a statement before the game on Saturday through Stephen McGowan, basically saying, come and get him because his future's not here. I thought it was just crazy. He's not even in the matchday squad. Yeah. Whilst David Turnbull, again, not even in the matchday squad for the Champions League during the week, is then put into the starting lineup. It's a bit all over the place at the moment.
It really is, and we're going to get into it in a whole lot more just shortly. Paddy James is so angry he's just ripped off his jumper.
the rage.
I can feel the heat off him.
He's absolutely burning up.
We can add heat effects to the YouTube video.
Okay, so before we get stuck into it, just some quick updates and housekeeping before we kick on. A quick reminder to everyone that you can now listen to every show we do here at the Celtic Exchange in one of two ways. Option 1 is to listen for free on the Celtic Exchange channel, wherever you get your podcasts, where the episodes will feature adverts at different points. Or option 2, if you want to support us for a small monthly fee and to enjoy every show completely ad-free, then you can do so by joining the Celtic Exchange Plus right now over on our website at thecelticexchange.com. And finally, if you are enjoying what we do, then please take 2 minutes to follow the channel wherever you get your podcasts. And if that's on Apple or Spotify, then please leave us a 5-star review while you're there. It really makes a big difference to what we do. Paddy, to get us started, I want to play the blame game. It's one of my favourites, and I just want to look at specifically Saturday. Who's to blame for that in the park? And I'm basically, as you say, James, on the park stuff at this moment in time. Is it Brendan Rodgers for you, or is it the players for Saturday's result and performance?
It's just a bit of a cop-out, but it is both. I sat last Friday afternoon, a wee bit of time in my hands, and I went through the whole squad, 33 players in it, and I went 1, 2, 3, 1 definitely saying I would start you in the Champions League next year, 2 development or squad player, and 3 out. McGregor isn't a 1 for me.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he should be looked at as a long-term prospect. We've given him a crazy contract, but he was so poor on Saturday, he wasn't dragging anyone anywhere, and yet if the manager's not able to get the message across, I'm looking to Callum McGregor. He's just turned in 1 too many poor performances for me, and the one saving grace he had was his captaincy material that would get you through games. Well, that's gone now as well, so what's his saving grace?
So Brendan Rodgers speaking after the game, and we're going to get to some different quotes, Paddy, from Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor in just a wee bit, but Brendan Rodgers after the game, James, was basically saying that Callum McGregor's doing the work of 2 and 3 players. So I agree. I think he's been out of sorts, absolutely. I've said it a few times. I asked the hypothetical, Paddy, probably about 6 weeks ago now, should we consider dropping him? And I think the answer, and probably the right answer at the time, was a resounding no. But he's doing a lot of work, ultimately because there's a lack of quality around him. And it's not to make an excuse, but it can give you a reason as to why his performances are suffering.
Yeah, I would agree, but who would you drop him for?
No, I thought we need to sign.
Yeah.
And there's no one in the building.
This is the issue. I think, and I said this when he was being questioned at the beginning of the season, I think he is too scared to trust the players around him at the moment. I really, really do. And it shouldn't be the case. Absolutely not.
Why would he?
Well, but the thing is that this is why he is doing it. He's trying to do the job of 2 or 3 men because he wants to be all over the middle of that park. It is really affecting his performance.
I'm going to read out a quote in just a bit, Paddy. Myself and James were discussing it in the car, so it's not a teaser, it's coming up soon, but it's really damning on Callum McGregor's teammates and where he finds himself at this moment in time. I think he's hurting, James. I think he's really feeling the pressure of this. You might have seen the clip post-match where he's kind of rallied the guys on the park in a kind of mini huddle type thing almost, and it's like it's panic station stuff. You know, it's like we've reached a point here where we're really, really struggling and something needs to give. And I think Callum McGregor's absolutely trying his best as a captain and individually as a player, but I think he's suffering from a lack of resources around him.
The whole team is, you know, the lack of resources. You know, you asked me earlier on what's the main issue. That's the main issue. The lack of resources will give you, and I do agree, McGregor is doing more than he should be. But I also see it in his own performances as well, and you can mitigate that in X, Y, Z. But if he had better quality around him, of course, then doesn't he take as much responsibility? And it's not just his midfield 3, it's who do I trust behind me?
Yeah.
Is he having to sit so deep because he can't trust his centre half pairing when CCV's not there? He's having to cover out left because Greg Taylor's somehow still playing first team football for Celtic. He's covering right because Johnson's in and out of form, Ralston's sometimes there. There's all that kind of stuff. So I do get the work he's doing, but I'm also not seeing it in him, in his own play.
Watch the game back, right, on Saturday.
I can't.
No,
I can't do it.
For this one reason, right, the distribution for Joe Hart was always coming down our left-hand side. Every single short goal kick went to Liam Scales to Taylor to Palma. Hart's caught onto it so quickly because I don't know if they don't feel comfortable enough to trust Mikey Johnson in the right, which I could, to be honest, I can understand. But the frustration cutting from Louis Palma, the fact that he wasn't getting that overlap at any point in the game of Greg Taylor, or if he was, it was 2-3 seconds too late. Scales was running out of options to the point that he actually was getting more hesitant to pass to Taylor. And then the option of David Turnbull in front of you was getting closed off. And Hearts were pinning 2 on McGregor every time. We were trying to bring it out the back. The idea of them trying to continuously do that through the left was baffling to me, and they never changed it. They'd done it in the second half again, and I thought, we're not scoring today. We're not scoring.
See, when we did change it and Johnson was coming out with it on the right, Alistair Johnson, he's looking ahead and Mikey Johnson's not showing for him.
Oh, I know.
It was criminal, and I don't like it, but I would have subbed Mikey Johnson first half.
And I need to come out on that because I've been a real vocal supporter of Mikey Johnson. I've maintained there's huge talent in there, but I cannot defend that performance, that first half on Saturday. It was woeful. And listen, he's surrounded by players who are having similarly poor games, but Mikey Johnson knows he's in the last chance saloon here and he needs to step up. And all of a sudden, from being right out the picture at Celtic, he's had 4, maybe 5 starts. This has been his time to shine, the opportunity that he's been crying out for, and he absolutely has not taken it. And I've been desperate for him to succeed, but I need to accept that a 45 minutes like Saturday, you just cannot turn that in a Celtic shirt and expect to see game time again.
It's over for Mikey. I think we just need to accept that, and move on. I know that's hard for you, but it's over.
Not ready for that.
It's over for him as much as for Nat Phillips at the back. It's just two guys you'll never see again in the Celtic jersey.
We need to win this league. He shouldn't be anywhere near the team.
I'm inclined to agree, and that's tough for me to say because I do believe there's talent there, but it would look more and more likely that Mikey will need to take his talents elsewhere, and that'll be a loss to Celtic.
And maybe that'll free him up the pressure and all that, and he can go and thrive.
Yeah. Individual players aside, Paddy, and there's a number of guys we could go through. What did Louis Palma give us on Saturday? What did various others? What about the manager? Right. Generally speaking, I feel that, with all respect / non-respect, any version of Celtic should be any version of Hearts and or Calmac last week. And that's got to be on the manager. Yes, he lacks quality options at this moment in time, and we'll see what January brings. But the 32-man squad, the players available to him right now, limited as some may be, should be capable of beating 6th place Hearts.
Well, I've obviously got my numbers wrong because I've went for 35, James was went to 33, and it's now 32. So we need to get the man's death.
I think it's 34.
Right, okay.
I think it is 34.
Rodgers is quoted as saying 32, so I'll go with that.
Right, okay.
Brendan's never wrong.
Brendan, well, it wasn't Saturday.
Yeah.
I think what you look at, and we've kind of just touched on, a lot of our play is coming out from the back, but if the channels are closed and they're trying to play it in the middle of the park, which teams seem to be doing very, very easily against us, it's going out to the wings, it's going out to the fullbacks. Johnson's not had a settled right winger in front of him all season, and Greg Taylor just can't play down the line. He just can't do it at all. He hides in midfield. He's still trying to do that. He was maybe getting masked quite a bit with playing the inverted fullback role under Ange, to the point he was getting away with it so much.
I would say Mark's a wee bit hard. Maybe it's just a style that suits him.
The reason I think it suits him more in the middle of the park, yes, but he's exposing us so much down that right wing for attacking teams. And Liam Scales hasn't got the pace that Carl Starfelt had to go over. Yeah. It's simple as that. We are noticing that a lot as well.
Can I just say something, Carl Starfelt? Well, I remember, so good mate of mine, Davy Gregg, is a big fan of Carl Starfelt. Davy himself's not doing great right now, so I want to just kind of give him a shout out. But he was speaking about Carl Starfelt in terms of, it's easy to give Starfelt criticism because he wasn't the greatest in the ball, and he was a bit uncomfortable, and we can all agree he had quite an unusual style. Look at the goals Celtic are now conceding from set pieces and corners. Carl Starfelt ate that up. Yeah. He was a dominant force. I was going to say in both boxes. He certainly was a handful, in attacking sense, but defending wise, he was the main man for Celtic, and I don't think people have given enough credit to him now that he's missing. And now all of a sudden, any corner is a nightmare for Celtic.
A throw in,
and you really miss that. And listen, we've got Liam Scales and Alistair Johnson tying themselves in knots for that. Lawrence Shankland, listen, everyone knows he's a decent striker. Alone in the 6-yard box to just
behind you,
bullet a header in.
Bonkers.
Really poor, and I think we're missing Starfelt in those kind of situations.
But this is Celtic have got you asking a different question here. The question that was asked to fans last year was, could you improve upon Carl Starfelt for Europe, for the European level? And we go, aye, that's what we want. So maybe Starfelt would have dropped to become, a second choice left centre half, but we want like a strong European. Nobody said, I'll give you two guys that can't get in the squad, never mind the bench, and Liam Scales. That wasn't the answer we're looking for. So Celtic have got you asking a question that wasn't the one we were looking for. It was, can we improve upon Starfelt? Is he a good player? Yes. Can we improve on him? Also, yes.
Yeah, and this isn't revisionism. There's a lot of stuff, whether it's Starfelt or people greeting about Giakoumakis at this moment in time, and guys who'd done decent jobs at Celtic. It's not to say they would be the answer to all our problems, but it's clear, as James says, Paddy, we've taken guys out and we've certainly not replaced them with better. It looks like downgrades across the board.
Downgrades across the board, and with that, it breeds that panic and that anxiety between those players that did deliver us a treble last season. I've said this for a long time as well. We look at the guys that are, have been massive for us, massive, and I include Joe Hart in that, but his time should have been up in the summer, and Greg Taylor should have been replaced in the summer. That didn't happen. And I'm actually looking at the performances of Cameron Carter-Vickers at the moment as well. Sadly for me, I don't think he's fit. I don't think he looks fit at all. I don't think he's back to where he should be. And I think there's a real concern there. And I don't think he's wanting to push himself because he's worried about what the future is on that knee. And
I've seen some rumours that he does have some issues and he's about to sign a new Celtic deal based on the fact that he knows that he needs to manage his body and he can feature sometimes and not at others, and Celtic will play ball with him on that basis. He maybe doesn't feel, and this is a lot of rumour, but doesn't feel able to go and do it at the top level down in the Premier League, and it kind of makes sense if that's what we're seeing at this moment in time. Yeah,
he's just that yard slower, and it's an operation such as what he had in the summer is well before the summer is so risky. It's not always guaranteed you're going to get the same player back, and I just think we're maybe seeing that a little bit. Hopefully it changes for him. Hopefully, like we see him pick up, and the winter break comes at the right time for a lot of players. But it's just not a settled backline, and we speak about Starfelt in the back as well. I think back to that 2-1 game at Ibrox in Angie's first season. Every single cross, and that's all they had at the time, is every single cross that went into the box was mopped up by the two of them.
Yeah,
we're not doing that. We're not.
And as much as Liam Scales gets credit, and I still, even though he's not 100% at himself, I still maintain CCV's one of our better players at this moment in time, even though not fully fit. They're not as effective a partnership as a fully fit CCV and Carl Starfelt. And that's not hankering back for a player who did have his limitations, but it is what it is. I just want to look at the the lack of involvement on Saturday from the summer recruits, right? We all know by now there's 9 guys that come in. Only one of them starts. It's Louis Palma. Had a shocker, right? Mm-hmm. Paulo Bernardo's on the bench, sub not used, and Kwon. Now, Miff's taking a piss out of me in the last few weeks for mentioning Kwon as if he's got some sort of future, and then all of a sudden...
We're not laughing now.
Nobody's laughing now. All of a sudden he's on the bench, but unused, sub. That means that Odin Thiago Holm, Marco Tilio, Yang, Mike Navarocki, Gustaf Lagerbielke and Nat Phillips aren't even in the squad. So it's not like you're signing guys and you're going, we signed a bundle of guys in the summer and they're struggling to find their feet. You know, they get 60 minutes here or 20 minutes off the bench. They're not even in the squad. And if you're marking the homework of the recruitment team, that is damning stats.
Is that another bit of Rodgers, firing arrows at someone?
Well, I do not buy the theory that he's playing dross to show the board how little players he's got, because that's all on his CV. I don't think he would sacrifice results to say, look how poorly my options are. I just think he's not picking them because they're not good enough. I think it's as simple as that sometimes.
Yeah, well, it certainly fires an arrow. If that isn't the desire, it has that effect, because he's pointing straight at Mark Law and saying, look at what you've served me up here.
I mean, Marco Tilio comes off the bench a couple of times a few weeks ago and then disappears. Gustaf Lagerbielke, you've mentioned it, Paddy. The guy scores the winner during the week. He is sky high. He scored a Champions League winner. Then he's not in the squad.
They did a puff piece with him in Celtic TV. Great, and he's like, top of the world. Not even in the squad. But then putting out that piece, like you said, through Daily Mail of all things, Stephen McGowan. I mean, Celtic's PR faux pas over the years, and the same guy is still in charge of that. Come on, Celtic, get a grip.
Yeah, it leads us nicely to just what I've described as puzzling squad management at times from Brendan Rodgers. The Lagerbielke one was really unusual for me. Surely, it's clear that he's maybe decided that Lagerbielke is not going to be the answer, but even just on momentum and form and the confidence he would have taken into his game on Saturday, he merited a place in the bench at least. So what does it say? If you talk about meritocracy, James, he scored the winner in the Champions League and then he's not in the squad, so there's no reward there. And I know he shouldn't really be up there scoring the goals, but he did score the goal, and I thought he deserved to be in. There's another couple of puzzlers for me. I've mentioned Kwon, right? We don't see Kwon since the summer, and he's on the bench. Mitchell Frame was a big one for me. Again, sky high after Wednesday night. Dream debut, 17 years of age, Champions League, buzzing, go home, tell friends, family. Long way to go if you're going to make it, but what a start. We're crying out for something at left back, a solution of any sorts. Now, I'm not saying start him against Hearts, but can you get him in the squad, get him on the bench, and if it's not working out with Greg Taylor, which it clearly hasn't been and it didn't on Saturday, throw him in.
Yeah.
What's to be lost? Like, Kieran Tierney get thrown in when it wasn't working out for Izaguirre, so throw him in and let's see what the kid's got. It'd be a real test of his character and you need to be careful with it, but do it all the same. Instead, we throw on Bernabe initially at left wing.
Aye.
Wow,
Baffled.
right? Somebody has used the line, but we threw him on mid-haircut, right? We've thrown him on left wing, mid-haircut. He's done absolutely nothing there for about 10 minutes. And eventually, Rodgers then went, I better put him back to left back and we'll take out Greg Taylor. And I thought those couple of moves were very un-Rodgers-like as well. He's quite careful and considered and planned with his moves. It just seems he just rolled the dice and
it's desperate.
Took the chance.
It's desperate. It's not having good quality players available in this massive 30-man squad. I'm going down.
32.
Continue to go down. No, it's a sign of desperation. I just think that what I used to think he was capable of being arrogant and saying, this is what I'm working with. Now I actually think he's like, I don't know what I'm working with. I genuinely don't know. I think the hope for Johnson is that he was going to kick on after a decent spell against St Johnstone, but a team that were second bottom of the league at the time as well. James Forrest is not going to beat a man, sadly, and yet is still there and thereabouts in the team just now. I'm just thinking about who you blame here. We're looking at Rodgers, we're looking at who he's picking, but then you're also just thinking about some of the deals handed out to Forrest for 3 years, Scott Bain for 3 years,
Mikey
Johnston, and the squad's bloated, and we signed 9 players, and one of them's maybe all right, we don't know yet. It's an absolute shambles. The blame for me still fully lies on this board, and I think Rodgers is just in a bit of a quandary just now as how do I get a song out of this? He's hoping for players coming back, and he would never rush the likes of Cameron Carter-Vickers or even look at Dyson Maeda having to come in.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
All rushed. I think just as you're saying that, Paddy, the squad management is scandalous across the board, and that can't be the job of the manager. It can't be his job to take a 32-man squad down to a 26-man squad or whatever optimal number he wants to work with. That's for the recruitment and the guys above him to say, okay, they're surplus to requirements, we'll ship those 6, 7 or 8 out permanently or on loan, we'll add you a wee bits of quality here, you can work with a tighter group at Lennoxtown and it can be a real focus group for you. Instead we've just got bodies everywhere. I shudder to think how many players Celtic have used this season actually.
It's like an amateur team like sending out a text on a Friday who's available tomorrow. Honestly, that's the way it's looking like.
Aye. You got it tonight?
Aye. Sorry, I'm not making it. I was on one.
The question of trust comes up for me in two ways. I think it's clear that Brendan Rodgers himself doesn't know who he can trust. The fact that he's got different defenders in, Kwon's coming in. Miff calls it the midfield tombola. You know, it's a raffle to see who gets that third position at the moment, out with Callum McGregor and Matt O'Reilly. The lucky dip to see who gets that third position. And as much as Brendan Rodgers can't trust the players, I think his chopping and changing. So the way that, I don't want to say the way he has treated Lagerbielke this week, but casting a guy like that aside all of a sudden, Mike Nawrocki can't get anywhere near it. Kwon's in and out. Bernardo plays European games, not other games. Turnbull's given a chance, then he's told he's not good enough. Bernaby's not deemed good enough for European squads, but all of a sudden he's in for a Hearts game. There's so many moving parts there and stuff, and I wonder if players themselves, James, now feel that they can't trust the manager. Yeah. And that's the big danger for me. They don't know where they stand with him because he's been so chop change with it all.
I think you're nail on the head there, because what that breeds is insecurity. Players feeling insecure about their place in the team, their talent, their future, their financial future, the whole thing, and they're taking that into the game because you weren't playing last week, this week, you're not next week. So when you do get your game, you're going, geez, I really need to turn it on here, or I'm out next week again.
True. But the one thing I would say about Rodgers this season is that he's I don't think he's entirely held back in his press conferences or his post-match interviews. I think he is very much of, well, we can see what we need. And I think he's challenged a lot of players. Turnbull definitely been one of them. I think, there was high hopes that 2 goals at the start of the season would maybe start to see something from him, really push for a place, but it's just not working out for him. But he's in and out the team just now, and getting hooked at half time every 2 or 3 weeks is just not going to do the guy's confidence any good.
But you don't get hooked at half time unless you deserve it.
No, I get it, and listen, I don't think he's our quality. I don't think he's at the level required. But this is what we have at the moment, and this is the worrying thing. There's just no squad management from the board, but now it's the man management thing that Rodgers is really good at, but he needs to get it right, and he's working with such a big squad.
Yeah, and I would say see, as a manager, generally speaking, there's 11 guys most weeks that you don't need to worry about. You barely need to speak to them because they're playing and they know they're playing and they're happy with that. They're very comfortable. Your biggest challenge is the 7 guys who are on the bench and the extended squad who find themselves even further out the picture. And you make your money as a manager by keeping those guys happy and keeping harmony within the squad there, and by showing guys that, do you know what, I know you're on the fringes just now, but if you work hard enough, I'll give you an opportunity, and then it's up to you to prove yourself. And it's a balancing act. It's a delicate situation, and I think it's maybe hard to do with 18, 19, 20 guys. It's impossible with 30 odd guys. So what you've got is just human nature. You've got a training ground up there at Lennoxtown full of unhappy guys.
Aye.
Right? You maybe get 12, 13, 14 who are reasonably happy because they're playing just now, albeit the issue is they need to play for Celtic at the moment, and that's not much fun by the looks of it. But generally speaking, they're okay with things, but you've got so many bodies. You've got double that amount of bodies that aren't happy, and that's a hell of a job for any manager.
It's really poor for the morale in the team. And then you've got one captain in Callum McGregor trying to motivate these guys. You would always say that Joe Hart was a big voice in the changing room. His confidence is shot at the moment.
Head's gone.
You would also say that Greg Taylor sounds as if he's a bit of an influence. His head is gone as well. So is it Callum McGregor and Brendan Rodgers that are the only voices at the moment? I know we've got the coaching team there, but I'm generally concerned for those that are hanging around at the moment. Like, what are they all thinking? My only hope is that the plan has been put in place and that everyone knows where they're standing. I've seen that even James McCarthy gets some game time in the terms of, let's get you fit to move you on. And I'm thinking that Lagerbielke has been told, that's it, it's finished, it's done now. if we are doing that, because my worry for this transfer window is that Celtic will need to sell first before we go and start signing players. And it's not to do with how much money we've got in the bank, it's to do with our wage bill. It's massive.
I don't think we can afford to take that risk. I think
I agree.
You absolutely can't have those bodies at Lennoxtown, the guys who are to be sold or to be loaned out. You've got to let Rodgers go and get his guys, and then whatever you manage to sell and recoup and balance the books, that's a secondary concern. If it costs you money, Don't have them up at Lennoxtown.
Now that's the way you would operate.
Exactly.
And I would, and you would, Paddy. I'm not sure it's how this Celtic board operate.
We know this because of the Benji Siegrist situation. They couldn't get rid of him in the summer. So what do we do? No sign a goalie.
No goalie.
Jeez, oh man. So they can't repeat that same mistake. I mean, you're just basically saying to Rangers, they're 60 million heads, you're a bit of financial trouble, that'll sort you out.
That's even more galling. Paddy, you've mentioned that Brendan Rodgers has been quite upfront in the press conferences, as he generally is. Well, Miff will doubt that. Miff has got certain opinions on how Brendan Rodgers speaks and stuff, but generally speaking, I think he's quite upfront in terms of where he's at, what's going on, what's good, bad and indifferent. But there was real worrying quotes from him at the weekend. You'll have seen it after the game. So done a couple of different interviews, one with I think Sky Sports, one with Celtic TV itself. He apologised first of all to the fans, and he said that's something he's never had to do so far in this spell or his last spell. He talked about a lack of desire, passion and mentality, although he was quick to exonerate Callum McGregor, Liam Scales and Matt O'Reilly. He mentioned those three by name, which is fine, that's good for them, but that's
you're pointing the finger
indirectly saying, but anyone I've not mentioned, you're in trouble. But he was asked obviously if the result was a shock, and he said, I'm not surprised, if I'm honest. I've seen it within the team from time to time. I'm surprised at home we produced that level of performance, but not so when I see the first half at St Johnstone and then having to activate that at half time, angriest he'd ever been, and then Calmac away and today. And that's seriously worrying if he's not surprised at such an uninspiring performance. Celtic went 2-0 down after half an hour?
All the time in the world.
And at no point like getting back into that game. So, I mean, have we got a mentality issue here within this squad of players?
We do, but it's just the same as we're covering. It's from all the things you're saying about players not knowing where they are one week to the next because they shouldn't be there and they're being played despite the manager's best wishes. He'd rather they were out and somebody else was in their place, but he's not got that luxury because here we go again, it's Mark Law, didn't sign the guys in the summer. So everything points back to the same places, and there is a mentality problem, no doubt, and as much as positivity's catching, negativity's faster, and it just breeds and breeds. So we cannot get January wrong. We've got so many important games coming up between now and then we've got to come back after the winter break with half your players away at the Asian Cup. I mean, it's so.
Somebody messaged the other day and says the bad news is Kyogo might be away at the Asian Cup, and also the bad news is Kyogo might not be at the Asian Cup. Like either way, based on what Kyogo's doing at this moment in time. And we don't have time to cover Kyogo, Paddy, but I know you're angry because he's been absolutely cast adrift almost at this moment in time, and there's just such a lack of service. He obviously had that huge chance where Louis Palma's put it across to him. He's a few yards out, and Kyogo any other day of the week tucks that away. And he's a guy who has missed big chances at different times in his Celtic career, but the body language and the confidence is way gone. I want to talk to you, Paddy, just about the term throwing players under the bus. Do you think that's what Rodgers is doing, or is he simply using the tools that he has at his disposal, which includes speaking to the media and just giving guys a jolt as such to try and get more out of them?
I'd say probably the latter. I think that what you need to remember though is that it's not an easy job to come and play for this club. Not everyone's capable of doing it, and I think that we've got a squad where the majority are not at that bracket, and that's the big issue that he faces at the moment. Every football team has to prepare for injuries, suspensions throughout any season. We're always going to have them. We need to make sure that the players coming in to take over those positions are ready to go and fight and for the jersey. And I just don't think that we have that dig. I don't think we have that fight at the moment. And I'm even thinking about the players that we might get back soon. We might have a fully fit Daisen Maeda. We might have a fully fit Lila Bada and Rio Hitati, hopefully coming back soon. The pressure is on their shoulders straight away. That's not a good thing to come back into. So how does he reintroduce them? Does he do it slowly, or does he say, I need you now?
Can't afford
and I think we think back to one game, and it was the 3-0 game, and Callum McGregor returned, and the boost that gave the team. Rio Hatate, I think, has to have that similar impact. Dyson Maeda the same, and Abada, I'm actually quite worried about his return to the team as well, because I think that there's still that bit of a divide with the crowd as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I really like to think Liel Abada as a Celtic player will be given our full support, but we've got to be real about it. There's an underlying political situation, and people may have things to say. I'm not sure how that's going to play out.
I don't think that's an issue at all. I don't think there's any way he gets any hard time. I absolutely can't wait for him to come back. And I really, because you've got to separate the man from the situation as well. He's a Celtic player, end of story. I'm screaming for him to get back.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. We've seen you're talking about guys coming back, and how do you manage that? At half time on Saturday, I think a lot of us thought Dyson Maeda would be the messiah. Get Maeda back, get him on, we'll see something happen. And I will excuse him because he's come back from injury. That was an absolute mind-blowing performance he gave.
It's still better than Mikey Johnson's.
I don't know. I don't know, because it was just wondered.
Bouncing off his foot, running out the park. Oh, I thought he was terrible. And he's just back, and there was a lot of pressure on his shoulders. But it just shows, though, Paddy, you do need to be careful how you reintroduce guys. Yeah. So had Liel Abada been on the bench, or Rio Hatate, would have thrown them on at half time and said, go and turn this game around. And they would then have been part of the problem in the eyes of certain fans. So it's a really tricky situation, and it's got to be managed correctly when these guys find themselves back available.
Yes, but I just think it's a luxury we don't have. You know, if you get the option of having Rio Hatate starting on the 30th of December, he's starting. Whether he's 90% fit or 70% fit, he's starting.
Yeah. But I think that's dangerous.
Of course it is.
I do. I totally get where you're coming from.
And how did we end up here?
No, I know. I absolutely. I just think it's really dangerous that we go and put that pressure on to players that are just not A, match fit, but B, they're not physically fit. And I generally think I'm seeing that with Carter Vickers. And why are we in that position, as you just said? It's baffling.
Yeah. I mentioned some worrying quotes from Brendan Rodgers. There's the quote I'd mentioned now, Paddy, from Callum McGregor, and I just thought it was quite unusual to hear a player, let alone a captain, but any player speaking in this way. So it's a wee bit long, so bear with me, but I'm really keen to hear both your thoughts after this. Not both of your thoughts, Paddy. I know you've got more than one thought. Got my plurals all up there.
Only two Paddy Loughran's.
Anyway, so basically Callum McGregor, he's almost pleading with the board for me to make new signings in January, which in itself's a crazy position. So the quote's as follows: "We've got a transfer window that can help the group, and I'm almost certain that needs to be a big window to help us. We need players to help the squad. I'm not talking specifics, I'm talking quality coming through the door. That can be in any position. It's the manager and those guys' job to do that. Every season when we look at it, we want to be better. We come back in off winning a treble, but how do you get better than that? You have to freshen up the place. You lose 5 or 6 big players from last season, so you then have to go and replace that if you want to keep on being successful. You have to find a way to rejuvenate the team and find the next Jota, find the next crop of players that are going to go and make you successful. So that's a target for the club all the time, and they're always looking. Like I said, we're missing the quality from last season, so we need to add to that. I think that's obvious." Reading between those lines, Paddy, he's effectively telling us that he can't rely on his teammates at this moment in time. And again, like so much that we've covered today, it's really worrying.
It's worrying, but for me, I see faith in the manager from Callum McGregor, and I see a player calling out the board for a dismal transfer window. It is worrying. I think that what I'm looking at there is, we know that it's not going great. It answers a lot of questions for me, and he knows that what he's playing alongside. And I'd still stick to this. I do think that's pulling his performance down. I do think he's doing more running. I don't think the trust is there for those around him, and that's a bad sign, because he's always been a part of a fairly solid midfield. For those players that are sitting listening to that are part of this squad, you need to ask yourself, what am I doing here? Am I going to step up, and am I really going to go for it? I look at David Turnbull, I look at Mikey Johnston, I look at Greg Taylor. You know, there is potential in all of them to settle in and grind the performances out against teams like Hearts, but the interest from all three just wasn't there. They were all over the place, and I just see this creep him up with Taylor, that he's got into this hiding situation just now where I just don't see him tracking back as much as he is, and he's very quick to have a go at Liam Scales for covering his position.
Yep.
And I'm just like, you're not playing that role anymore. You're not playing that role. You need to get back and cover.
Yeah.
So it's interesting for McGregor, but those players will know who they are.
I think so. He doesn't need to name names there. Everyone within the squad will know who's pulling their weight and who's not. But James, are you surprised to hear the comments from, as I said, regardless if he's captain or not, for any player to come out, and it's twofold. As I say, he's kind of calling out his teammates, and it's very unusual for a player to call out your board and say we need signings in January. Everyone thinks it, but players don't generally say that. So I just thought it was fairly unique as a comment.
I think with Paddy, I'm happy to hear it because it shows that he understands the reality of the situation. But I've never ever, can't remember any Celtic player speaking about signings and transfer windows, because it's speaking to a board situation. Never ever recall that at all. But he gets it. He's carrying the manager's message, which is good. That means the manager's message is getting through. Maybe it's being delivered to the players and they just can't get it because they're not good enough, and we know there's enough of that going on. But it's strange to hear it, but I'm a little bit reassured to hear it.
Aye.
Yeah, you take something from it. It's clear that Callum McGregor's taken on a lot of the responsibility at this moment in time.
I think so, and I think back to the summer when he got his new deal as well, and there's a reason for that new contract coming in. The expectation was that the quality of player was going to increase, the wage bill was going to increase, and we were going to really fill the gaps that we had lost. And I wonder if that was promises made to him as well. I really do. I think as a club, he's at a very, very good age, Callum McGregor, to turn around and say, hang on, I could go and get a couple of years down in the Premier League and go and get my bank balance up. Yep. But the board have promised a manager, and the board will have promised those players that sign contracts, this is what we're aiming to do, and they've not fulfilled it.
Yeah, Callum McGregor, so 30 years of age, he's committed his peak years, certainly his twilight years of his playing career to Celtic Football Club, and you don't just do that on a whim. It's last big contract time, isn't it? So he'll have thought long and hard, spoke to his advisors, taken time, spoke to family, whatever he does, and got those reassurances that Paddy mentioned. So I wonder, and I asked the question a week or two ago, had Brendan Rodgers been sold a pup by certain people? I wonder if Callum McGregor has as well. Just to finish this section off, and I want to try and do so on a positive if we can. You don't want to be negative at all times, but you've got to be real about the situation. But what can Celtic do in the short term to potentially turn things around? So the obvious answers potentially would be have a big January window, blow us away in January. Don't hold your breath, James. Get the players back from injury, the Reo Hitatis, the Leah Labadas and others. But ultimately to see more desire, more work rate, more effort, more passion from the manager and the players around them. So just in short, James, what would you like to see in the next couple of weeks?
I think the manager's gone to the well as many times as he can to re-energise them and be angry with them at St Johnstone, and then we turn in our Calmac and all these things. I really don't know, is that going to have any more effect? McGregor sounds scunnered with it as well. He's done as much as he can of that. I think the only saviour here is go out and spend mad money in January. If Celtic don't sign 3 quality players in January, the board will get annihilated by the fans. Nobody running at the Greenbury back will be getting any fans back because there'll be riots outside. It's so bad that they're in this situation where they're looking to save our season by having to go and spend stupid money, not on projects, on proven guys. Like I said earlier, I'd rather go for experienced loans rather than projects, but I'd prefer to get experienced guys in signed. I think that's the only way. I can't see any other route that they can turn this around.
Yeah, a situation of the board's own making, of the board's own design. And you would say on one hand, Paddy, they have spent the money, right? They've spent 20 million, but so ineffectively, so poorly. I mean, you don't deserve any credit for spending 20 million if you've just frittered it away on nonsense, and that's ultimately what we've got here.
We learned our lessons from Neil Lennon in the 10 in a row season. Our manager, Ange Postecoglou, came in and said, I need to do this, that, the next thing. There was nothing in place. We've still not done anything. And what we have done isn't good enough. It's the Friends Act. It's the Sons Act. It's making sure that all the boys are looked after. It's embarrassing.
But see, even when things were going well under Ange, they had to give him what he asked for in terms of players because they had no choice. They were up against the wall. They're up against the wall again now. But as soon as, surprise, Mark and Peter Law come back, the transfer policy changes overnight and we start signing projects. The guys that Ange's last transfer window, there was just dross all over the place.
Yeah. Try to finish that section in a positive, Paddy.
Did that work out?
It's backfired dramatically. Let's lighten the mood with the Mystery Celt, which this week comes from Paddy. But first of all, we'll give you last week's answer. James, were you? Who was
I
here
was
last
not
week?
here. What was that last week?
I'll recap the clues, see if it triggers your memory. So number 1, I joined Celtic from Feyenoord. Number 2, I was capped twice for the Netherlands and 15 times for their under-21s. And clue number 3, after leaving Celtic, I spent time on loan at Bristol City where I played alongside ex-Celt Paul Hartley.
I was listening, sorry.
Right, got you. Paddy, did you get it?
Evander Snow.
The Snowman.
Snowman, aye.
Yep.
World Cup finalist.
No, you're thinking of Bryson Brahid. But on that note, any quick comments on Evander Snow while Paddy digs out his clues?
Like Evander, I mean, he looked like a footballer, but I don't know if it was. He was just an alright big player, nothing tremendous. Just it was a strange time.
He threatened to be a good player for Celtic during Gordon Strachan time, and I think he played in the last 16 and some different things. Very unfortunately had some heart issues and ultimately forced him to retire. I believe he's now coaching out in the Netherlands, but good luck to him. Could have been a contender, but didn't quite work out. Paddy, what's your clues for this week's Mystery Celt?
I hope he's get it. Do you know that? I'm going to be nice this week.
But you don't think we will?
You're a nicer guy than me, Paddy.
We'll see. So this player signed for us from Southampton.
Stuart Gray.
Oh, Stuart Gray, mind him? No.
Okay.
Next clue. He has one cap for Scotland.
Okay.
And he's got the fun fact of retiring from football twice, but coming out of retirement to
Got it. We'll get it beeped out. We'll get that beeped out for anyone playing along at home.
That's because he's thought about that one. 100%.
What we'll do, as always, we'll post the clues across our Twitter and Instagram pages as well to give folk online a chance, and we'll reveal the answer in next week's show. What we're doing to finish off the show this week, we're returning to the listeners' questions section, and very generally speaking, that's a feature we're now looking to have regularly towards the end of the show. So if you do have a question for us, get in touch. You catch us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. You can email me directly, tino@thecelticexchange.com. So this week's comes from Mazhar Yusuf. He's a good friend of the show, and he's submitted a good few questions in recent times. But he says quite simply, and I know, Paddy, you've touched on it briefly, but it's a very relevant topical question. If Brendan Rodgers gets anything less than maximum points in our 4 upcoming games before the break, so that's Livi, Dundee, Rangers, St Mirren, when do we start calling for action on his position as Celtic manager?
I think it would be foolish if we look to change anything. Basically, I think he'll get up to the Rangers game, and if we've dropped more points, I think it would be quite a poor decision to get rid of him, get into a winter shutdown. Can't even speak there, guys. Sorry.
That's how upset you are.
I know.
January transfer window.
Aye. The January transfer window, the winter break is a massive time for this group to regroup, and I think it could be a bit of a mess if we go and get rid of him there. I think he's got to be given the opportunity with players that he wants to sign, because he's not had that.
Somebody made the point, and I don't like to go into it, but might have been Mazhar. He sent us a fairly long email, and he was talking about people will say a manager, James, coming in needs to work with his own players, to make those improvements. Philippe Clement has made an average group of players better. There's no getting away from it. Michael Beale he's got the Sunderland job, by the way. But anyway,
structured, I wouldn't say better.
Maybe so. He's got them in playing within a system, and it's improved their results and their performances. So Brendan Rodgers has come in, and I would argue that he's not got his own players at this moment in time, but he's not made us better on the park, even with the tools at his disposal. Do you see where I'm at with that, do you think?
I absolutely see where you're at, but I would take to Paddy's point there. If you've watched Rangers playing, all he's done is shrunk their options and said, look, don't you be doing that, don't you just stick to your box. And he's made them a pretty boring, pretty functional, pretty physical team, and given the wage bill that team works under, they should beat most of the rest of Scotland. So that's all he's done. Big result in Europe, but awful. Like, we wouldn't get allowed to go and play that kind of football as Celtic.
And they were also very weak at the back.
Aye, as well. Betis, so no, I mean, I don't really see the comparison, and as to why Rodgers could have come in and done that limiting style of, right, nothing ambitious, you just play the ball down the line, etc, etc. You could do that, but it's not going to make us better. It'll just make us harder to beat, and we're better than that. We can't be doing that. To Mazhar's question, I think he's coming out the wrong direction. My worry is they don't back him in January and he goes, because if I'm his agent, I'm telling him to get ready to go if he doesn't back him in January. Yeah,
and I think that was one of Mazhar's points. So I've condensed it just to make the question quite punchy. But yeah, I think he said just that as well. It's kind of And a lot of folk are now saying it's back him or sack him, isn't it, Paddy? It's get fully behind this guy. So listen, it might be a different discussion if Miff was here just now, because as I say, he's got some strong viewpoints on Brendan Rodgers. I think he's a really talented coach, but there's no point in bringing in the talented coach if you're not going to support him. You might as well bring in the run-of-the-mill coach if you're just going to feed him a bag of nonsense in terms of your transfer policy. So if you're going for Brendan Rodgers and you're making him the highest paid manager in Scottish football history, and you've gone to great lengths to make sure he comes back to the club after a questionable exit, however you want to describe that, then you must support him fully. And I agree, if something went wrong and we get rid of Brendan Rodgers now or around January, you're then getting into a transfer window to sign players for a new manager again, who might play in a different style, and the new players might not suit him, and it's a real nonsense if that comes out.
And that's if we get a manager in place. I generally can't see anyone that's going to come and try and take over that. They would want to maybe think about it in the summer. I don't see anyone coming in January. The team's a mess. I think that we have enough about us to go and definitely win 3 out of the 4. The game against them is massive. I think that we're going to need to play it at our best with the players that we have to try and get a result in that game. I've still got a few friends that are thinking that we'll still beat Rangers on the 30th. I don't think we're anywhere near knowing what team we'll have, and I just don't think we comment on that now. I think it's one game at a time.
Yeah,
I'm going to comment. I think we beat them. I think we beat them in the 30th.
I think the momentum is with them at the moment, and we need to respect that.
It's the manager.
It's a great point. Momentum is huge in football, and they'll get the bounce from winning the League Cup and celebrating like it's a European Cup on top of the Superstore, tin pot, call it what you like. But I think Celtic on any day, this season, they've proven that when they get their act together in specific individual games, they can go and do the business. They've done it at Ibrox, they beat Feyenoord for a couple of other big results, one away at Pittodrie, Tynecastle, all that kind of stuff. And I've no doubt that Brendan Rodgers can get them focused for this one game. It's the bigger picture. It's dropping points at Hearts, it's dropping points at Calmac, it's dropping points at St Johnstone, Hibs. These failings that we've had so far this season. On a one-off game, and this is huge, I think you'll have them absolutely tuned in for that game, which might again paper over some cracks. But I'm not fearful. A lot of folk are really terrified for this game.
Can't wait for it.
I'm not terrified. I think we'll still have...
I wasn't saying you.
Aye, all right, mate. I think we'll still have a bit of... We'll definitely have our chances in this game. I'm not denying that at all. But what I would ask you, do you feel that starting 11 on Saturday goes and beats them?
Or finishing live?
Yeah. No, I mean, you couldn't be convinced of that.
Yeah.
It's just so disjointed just now. Iwata in and out, Bernabei in the squad. I thought there's a lot at play. I would just like to think that there'll be a real focus this week on regrouping and pressing the reset button at Livingston. I'd love to see what the chats were, this morning at train or tomorrow morning or whenever they get as a group. There must have been some sort of team meeting. You can't let that kind of stuff drift and just go back into training as normal. You need to pull them into the meeting room and say, all right, listen, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing moving forward. Here's a couple of issues. Let's iron them out and let's start again clean slate. You've got to do something like that. And I'd just like to think they'd get us tuned in. Paddy, you're absolutely right though. He's got to take it one game at a time. We can look forward and we can speculate about the 30th and other games. Brendan Rodgers must be saying to that group, you've got a game coming up against Livingston on Saturday. That is your only focus. Get tuned in for this one. Get your head right. Get right physically. And get the 3 points there. And then we can worry about Dundee and Boxing Day. And only then can we turn the attentions to the 30th.
Yeah, you've got to bear in mind, the first 11 that starts against Livi at the weekend will be 9 or 10, if not 11 out of 11 of guys who took us to 8 points clear at the top of the league, So, without games in hand. So there's more panic than is necessary. Even something like Iwata starting on Saturday would have made a big difference because that was starting to click. And that going out pulls McGregor back, creates more dysfunction and lack of cohesion and all that stuff. So I think getting Iwata back is a real target, and I don't know where he's at. We're not really hearing much in terms of that particular injury. But the players that you can put in Saturday can obviously do the job. They're fighting for their lives, by the way. So, this one they'll be throwing the kitchen sink at. A very physical game. And that's a game we don't like. Any set piece, any long ball, any throw in is panic stations for us. And I just don't know. I mean, this is like what Lennon was like in COVID season. Aimed to get a free kick in the halfway line. We're panicked. Livi in particular. And scored from it.
Yeah, I can see it right now. Terrifying. Sitting on a Tuesday night watching an empty Celtic Park, Celtic getting beat. Barry James made the comment there, and this is something that it's got to go both ways. There's people crying for Brendan Rodgers to lose his job. because he's blown an 8-point lead. He got the 8-point lead. So you need to, they both go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So it's the same manager that showed that he can take us away at the top of the table, albeit we've had a sticky couple of weeks there. So there's a couple of things at play there.
There is. He's not innocent. I don't think any fan would say that. But I think that he's working with what he's got at the moment. And this is where he earns his money. This is exactly where he earns his money. Do I think he's up to the task? Absolutely. Look at the amount of domestic trophies the guy won with us. I think he's a very good manager, and I think we're very quick to forget that. I think it's too easy to say get rid. I really do. But sometimes you've also got to look at what was happening across the way. It was manager after manager after manager, and actually a lot of the time it was their players. It was their players that were the issue. And I kind of think this is where the squad is sitting at the moment. I think that really needs to be taken into consideration. He needs to get it right though.
Yeah. Ultimately though, Paddy, it sounds like, certainly at this moment in time, he's the man for you. He's the man for the job. And I'm on the same page, James, are you?
Absolutely, he's the man to stay for now. I wonder if it's inevitable because it's Celtic's dysfunction at large that Dermot Desmond overstretches, overreaches, choppers in Rodgers and says, that's your manager to Michael Nicholson, despite that might not have been his choice, it might not have been the board's unanimous choice, but you're getting him anyway because I'm Dermot Desmond and that's that. But then you've got execs who've got to work with him every day and they're going, I don't really want to work with this guy, I don't really want to give him my full backing, and you get that lack of cohesion starting at the top, breathing through the management team, breathing into the team. So I think unless something seriously structural changes at Celtic exec level, we're going to end up with a different manager anyway, whether it's January, end of season, middle of next season, whatever. It can't go on with the lack of cohesion between the board and the manager. It's got to change. It's got to change Monday, today, now.
We are seeing the same friction that we've seen with Brendan Rodgers and the people last time around. But I think, ultimately in terms of backing Brendan Rodgers, it's 3 for 3 here. Miff will be screaming at his radio,
listener's question
iPhone,
from
whatever he listens in.
From Motherwell, listener's question.
So we'll see. But no, thanks to Mazar for the question. As I say, always keen to cover any listeners' questions, and we're going to do more of that in the weeks ahead. So be sure to get in touch. Tino at thecelticexchange.com, or you'll catch us on the socials. Paddy, the hour is just about done, so your final comments for the week.
Yeah, I think as I kind of said there, it's a game at a time for this team just now. They will be hurting. I think that those that were playing on Saturday will have definitely noticed the noises coming from the stands. That affects players, but I think that it was warranted after the performance, the first half performance especially. We need to get this sorted quickly, and it's time for people to step up. It's not just our manager that can come out and say this. It's not just our captain. There's voices in that dressing room, and they need to start speaking up, and need to start playing as a team again. Yeah, we need that unity, don't we? James, final word of the week goes to yourself.
Yeah, unity is key for me starting on Saturday. And it's not going to be a boring end to the season. There's a title race on our hands now, so looking forward to January when we absolutely must get those players signed. And if not, I look forward to being in the car park with my fellow fans.
Give me the boring end to the season all day long. I'll take the 12-point coasting into victory. However, we'll need to see how it goes. So that wraps things up on this latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James and Paddy for joining me, and our thanks to you for tuning in. We'll be back on Friday with the countdown to kick-off ahead of Saturday's game with Livi. And don't forget to follow and reviews wherever you get your podcasts, and to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for supporting the Celtic Exchange, and we'll see you soon.